Everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and today I have finished reading the first volume of Tales of the Jedi, the original 1993. I think it's 93. I'm going to assume I'm right. It usually works out. So 1993's Tales of the Jedi. So what I've been finding that I have to do more and more as I dive into Dark Horse, Star Wars Legends comics is that I have to increasingly do more research every time I'm trying to find what I want to read next, because I can't just pick something on the Marvel app and be like, okay, I'm going to read this, because the second I try and do that, it's like, oh, but if you didn't read these things over here first, you won't know what the hell's going on. So I keep on trying to find these origin points, these beginning steps for what comes later. And this, after I had to look it all up, this is basically the first step into the Knights of the Old Republic realm, or at the very least what would later on become the Knights of the Old Republic. So in 1993 they published these first 5 issues, and this is basically the first inkling of someone over there at Lucasfilm or Del Rey or wherever, basically saying, hey, I want to write about the origins of the Jedi, or at the very least, ancient Jedi, not necessarily the origins. We've talked about the origins already with Dawn of the Jedi. And this would basically, this has a bunch of volumes, and then after this, the game Knights of the Old Republic would come out. And that's basically the sequel to these series of comics. There's like 5 volumes, 5 issues each, or about that. And then of course in the continuity, Dawn of the Jedi is the earliest, and this would be the second earliest, I think. Or it's a little confusing, because while this is the first volume to come out, these first 5 issues, later on, like volume 3, I think is technically a prequel that takes place before this, but also after Dawn of the Jedi. The timeline of Legends is starting to come together in my mind, but I still have to be very careful, and I have to do research and be like, okay, this came out this year, but it takes place before these two and in between that one, and I need to read this one first, because otherwise, even though that one's a prequel, it won't make any damn sense if I try to jump into that. And that's basically what I've been coming across. So anyways, this is Tales of the Jedi. I'm just going to talk about these 5 issues. And already, this was interesting, the way that it was laid out, because what we're really seeing here is 2 different stories across 5 issues. The first 2 issues are about this young Jedi Knight and his brother and a Twi'lek friend of theirs. They're all apprentices of this Jedi Master, and for their first real test out in the field, I guess, they get sent to this planet where they're trying to settle this civil war on this planet between this civilized city people and these beast-riding wild people. And so they arrive there and they immediately get attacked, and this princess gets kidnapped, and so they try and go rescue her. But of course, it turns out that, hey, the beast people are the good guys, and the civilized city people are actually dark side users. And it turns out there's a long time ago there was a Jedi who arrived on this planet, and he had fallen to the dark side and become a Sith, and he's corrupting the planet from the inside or something. So there's all kinds of backstory. Of course, this is only going across 2 issues, but effectively the Jedi helped start this war between these 2 people, and now the Jedi are involved. And that's kind of where they leave things there at the end of the second issue. And then starting issue 3 through 5, you're following this lady who was the wife of a Jedi, and really early on, immediately, he gets killed. Only 5 pages in, he gets killed while they're on their way to deliver these crystals. And then through some mishaps, she kills the attackers, and she takes the crystals, and she's also force sensitive, so she manages to find where the crystals were supposed to go. And then there's this whole thing where oh, now she's gonna get trained by a Jedi, or trained to be a Jedi, and she has a baby with her this whole time. And her Jedi Master is this Triceratops dinosaur type thing, which is an interesting idea. I really like that, you know. And there's also another apprentice there, and then he gets recruited to go help the guys that we met in the first 2 issues, who, the only person we see from the first 2 issues during this next story is the Twi'lek apprentice. But other than that, all that stuff is very briefly mentioned and then not mentioned again from the first 2 issues. That's like a whole different thing that's happening simultaneously, I guess, or somewhere. I don't know. But basically, you know, the next issue is all about this lady's trying to become a Jedi, and she doesn't want to use a lightsaber, and so her master has to convince her to use a lightsaber, and she ends up having to save him from this Hutt gangster, who the Hutt gangster is still using sail barges, which is funny because, you know, this is right after Return of the Jedi, so they're like, I guess that's what all Hutts use, even if they're not on Tatooine. Anyways, so yeah, basically it ends with the master having seen this holocron where it's like, yeah, and they do a weird thing with holocrons also, and I imagine this must have been a was this before or after Dark Empire? I'm trying to think now, because I know Dark Empire was a very early version of what a holocron was. And in here, where you see another holocron, but in this version, they kind of act as if it's less of an actual video holo recording of information. It's more like an actual AI that they can interact with. And so the AI is like, yeah, you Jedi lady right there, you're gonna become like this really important figure in this war that's coming up. And that's kind of where they leave off in issue 5. So obviously, this is being built up. And of course, because I was doing research, I did get a little bit spoiled, which I think was unavoidable because these, you know, when you're trying to figure out what to read, where, or when, it's kind of inevitable. You're gonna read something that like, oh, and I guess that's gonna happen at some point. But yeah, so after this, I still do have 3 volumes that take place after this, and then 2 volumes that take place like 1,000 years before this. It's, yeah, the continuity was just being created, and it's a lot to take in, but I'm trying to like keep it all correct in my mind between having read Dawn of the Jedi and then this, and then knowing the video game takes place after this, and there's some stuff in between. But anyways, Tales of the Jedi, I would say, you know, this is a pretty good starting point. So if you're like me, I've never played the game, I don't know anything about Knights of the Old Republic or this era really, this is basically, you know, this is where you start. This is the 0 point, and you go from here, and it just gets bigger and bigger from here. I don't know how much of this they had planned at the time. Obviously, I don't think they knew what they were going to do with the video game and all that stuff, because this is still 93, and the video game wouldn't come out till 10 years later or something. So it's kind of crazy how much, there's so much lore, and it's so rich filled, but like being this early in the point in the timeline, and especially like when they were making it, they would like mention vague things like, yeah, there was an ancient Sith over there, you know, and you could tell that they're basically leaving windows open for other writers to explore later in some other medium or something, you know, like, oh, there was an ancient Jedi over there, I'm sure someone will write that over there, you know, and they're kind of leaving all these windows open, and the world's just gonna expand and expand and expand. It's pretty cool, it's pretty awesome, and I'm kind of hoping now that I'm reading this, maybe some of the references in Dawn of the Jedi will start to make more sense. Like maybe I'll catch some things that I remember from Dawn of the Jedi, because continuity wise it takes place before all this, but like in real world time it came out like in 2012, so I'm sure they put all kinds of Easter eggs and references to stuff that people at the time would have already read. So anyways, yeah, Tales of the Jedi, it's pretty interesting, and I think just like, you know, if you read comic books in general, you're kind of used to having to do some homework, you know, like I remember when I was first getting into DC Comics, I had to do a lot of homework. I had to like look up real world history of when things came out and in what order people read them. That way I know like how to structure this all in my mind. But yeah, this is a good starting point. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to read all of the Tales of the Jedi series, all 5 volumes. And then from there there was like a monthly series called Knights of the Old Republic that takes place between those volumes and the game. And then eventually at some point I will play the game. I'll get there when I get there. I'm taking my time with it. But anyways, this was a good starting point. It definitely feels like this is all gonna go somewhere and these characters are gonna be mentioned more. And in a lot of ways, this feels like what they were gonna do with Dawn of the Jedi, because again, Dawn of the Jedi, you know, it was 3 volumes, 5 issues each, and then, you know, the Disney acquisition happened, so it feels like they never got to fully expand as much as they had planned to, because with Dawn of the Jedi, it feels like a lot of windows were left open that never got explored. No one, so at least with this feels like a very similar way that they structured it, in that later on comics would explore both after this and before this. So yeah, this is a good starting point if you want to get into Knights of the Old Republic or Star Wars comics in general. I think here is a pretty good place to start, because they kind of start with the very bare basics of like, this is a Jedi, this is a Jedi Master, he's gonna go to some planet to solve some problem, stuff happens, you know? It doesn't get too overwhelming. The last thing I'll say is that, you know, look, just like Dawn of the Jedi, just like a lot of what I'm reading here, and maybe it's because it's a comic book medium, and I don't know, but they don't make these names easy to pronounce, like try and pronounce yourself. There's like Ulrich something something, and I'm glad that this is a visual medium, because I'm able to keep track of the characters visually instead of having to memorize everyone's names, you know, so I can just be like, hey, okay, there's the blonde dude, and there's the dude with the brown hair, and there's the dude who got his arm chopped off, so I know what these guys look like, instead of like, you know, if I was reading this in a book, I'd be like, damn it, hold on, was that the name of the master, or was that the name of the villain? I'm lost. So anyways, they're very sci-fi sounding names. Maybe I'm just really bad at that, I don't know. But yeah, Tales of the Jedi, go check it out. It's worth a read. Know what you're getting into. You might have to do some research like I did, just to at least know where in the timeline you're at. But who knows? Maybe this video helped you and you can just jump right in, read these 5 issues, and you can kind of get the gist of where you're supposed to be going. Yeah, I'm excited for this all to be explored and expanded upon. And it just makes me kind of even more sad now that Dawn of the Jedi never really got to move beyond those 3 volumes and that one book. Yeah, someone mentioned that there was a book. I know there's a book, but I think it takes place simultaneously. Anyways, so yeah, that was Tales of the Jedi. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye.